So without any further delay, we are delighted to welcome back our very, very talented, and say goodbye to Ryan as well. Thanks, Ryan. Our talented guests and facilitators today. We have Neil Hannam and Karen L from V Formation, and they are going to give us just an exciting presentation. You are going to be delighted. I will not steal the thunder from them, and I shall pass it over to Karen and Neil. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Can you make us screen share ability? And Karen, you're going to do the screen sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're ready to go with that.
You are, yes. You're
okay.
co-host.
Karen will call up the screen share. So some of you, I'm trying to think if I've seen any of your faces before in our previous two attempts, two seminars down here. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, great. Some of you we've seen before. Great. Use the chat function this morning. So if you've got a burning question, put it in the chat function, because we can start to see the chat questions and we'll bring them into the appropriate place or answer them as we're going along. Don't be afraid to interrupt us with questions in the chat function. We welcome that. So here's the start of the presentation. Karen gets to move some slides forward. Why don't we just go to what we're going to do today. There we go. So at the end of this session, we hope that you'll be able to draft a best practice donor-focused two-page case for support, right? That's a very high-level goal, and it's going to take Dolly Parton, neuroscience, and cats, amongst other things, for us to get there this morning. And the learning goals, there's only two. There's two learning goals that our friends and, down around Stratford, we want you to remember for the rest of your career in the not-for-profit world, which is how do you step outside of your own head and why? We'll get to the why. And how do you speak in a new language to your donors? These are the two things that if you can do, you will join the top 1% of fundraisers in the country. So I'm hoping by the end of this, we can convince you that this is the right thing to do. So, okay, let's show my boring bio. Here's my boring bio. You can read it later. I have a master's degree, so does Karen. And the reason I say that is because we are going to get you to write and think in a very different way. And that is completely intentional. You can see in my corner up there on my bookshelf, just the books this year I've read on fundraising. Really, do you want to do that? Maybe, but why don't you let us do a lot of that heavy lifting for you today with the help of Dolly to get you to the end of the session and come to a better understanding. So I'm going to Karen, do you want to jump in and say anything?
Sure. So we one of the first things we need to talk about and understand as fundraisers is there's 6 things that we love as people who work in and passionate for the organizations that we work in, but it's not necessarily what our donors give a darn about. There really is. So one of the things that's really makes fundraising hard is that we have in common shared values, shared dreams, shared beliefs. And some of the things that are really motivating you are a big zero to your donors. Like they don't care. To connect with donors, we need to get out of our own head and we need to see the things that they care about. We have to understand what our donors care about, not what we care about. Success comes when you separate what excites you from what moves them. So 6 things your charity's financial efficiency. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's nice. We need to know it. We need to be really on top of it. And, certainly, Imagine Canada's accreditation is important, but your donors don't really care. They want to have a sense of trust in your organization, but they don't really care about the details on your finances.
Well, Karen and I can give you some, Karen and I together have been to hundreds of donor visits in their people's living rooms for major gifts. Do you know how many times the question of financial efficiency has come up? Twice, maybe, in my 25 or 30 years of doing this. People they assume that you're a not-for-profit. You're not banking money offshore to go to Bermuda and take your whole staff there. They're assuming that at least you got a zero budget happening. So really don't think much beyond this.
Right. And in terms of how amazing you guys are, just think of this. Your donors want to make something good happen. That's what you got to lean into, is what good can your donors do for you? They don't care about your accounting figures. Really, their audited financials. 1 in 20 will ask, and you refer them to the CRA website if they really are interested. But you as Neil says, you just don't usually hear it. The complexity, you know, as we say, life is complicated, and your organization's on top of all the complexities. And, you know, you guys are proud, and we are always proud that we do an amazing job of managing all these intricacies in our organizations. Donors don't care. And it's disappointing, but yeah, it's not giving, it's just not, it's not interesting. It actively discourages giving. All right, so
I know
don't go
that
wrong.
you got to trust us on this one. Again, it sounds like, are these guys from Mars? Like, is Karen and Neil for real? You have to understand, we've just done this for so long, and we read the books, we stay on top of things, and complexity is not where donors' heads at. Again, when we get to Dolly Parton, you're going to see why she's winning the Carnegie Medal for Philanthropy this week. And I'm not, you know, I don't have a lot of Dolly Parton albums in my Spotify playlist, but I respect her tremendously as a philanthropist. And we're going to get to why complexity doesn't matter. A classic example of this is we were on a Zoom call in the middle of the pandemic with someone whose family is amongst the families in Canada with the most private wealth. If there was a list of 10, there are about 4. And this woman gives to a lot of things. We had a good connection with one of the solicitors to her husband. And she asked one question from the case for support. And in the case for support, it says, this long-term care facility accepts people from all religions and faiths and all backgrounds. And she said, is that really true? Does that really happen? And we said, yep, this is how it looks. This is where they come from. These are the people. That was a $50,000 question. And so that's why complexity doesn't matter. This woman could give anything she wants to any charity. She had one simple question. So do you want me to carry on with desperation?
Go ahead with
Karen?
desperation, although I've got an example of that because the letter I received yesterday was just an example of what you go ahead, Neil.
Yeah. Example to trash. I think that's the one you're going to do, right? Yeah.
Hmm?
So desperation, two-edged sword. You know, when your charity's facing desperation, that's not necessarily where your donors' heads are at. If their values are about making sure, and we've got the list of participants, so I'm going to start to use some of those in this presentation. If they're concerned about food distribution in your community, they're not worried about whether you exist, they're worried about whether the value exists. So they will either find another place to give or look at other organizations doing similar work. Now, the double-edged sword is, there is, at this time, going into recession, if you are desperate, you need to tell your donors that. Like, we've had a run, you know, every food bank use is up, that's a guarantee. You know, our donations are down. That's not a bad message to say to people, but if you're bungling your organization or if you haven't planned well, that kind of desperation isn't going to go over with people. Oh, we're jumping ahead of here, Karen.
Sorry about that. I just you know, I was reading a chat message. Someone said we missed or they missed slides 3 and 4. So I just want to go back to that. Sorry about that, Chief. I was right. We talked about accounting figures and complexity. So that was numbers 3 and 4 for the person that missed that. So go ahead. Sorry, Neil.
This is one that's tough for organizations. Your charity's heroic administrator or founder. There's many of them out there. I know them personally. You know some in your community. But guess what? Donors, they're not excited about that. That is proven over and over and over again that the people that started charities, that's not who they are. And just remember, you know, a little phrase to remember is the donor is the hero. Not your founder is the hero, the donor is the hero. And how do you make the donor the hero of the story? We're going to get more into that as the morning goes on.
And just think about, is it Kilberger?
Oh yes, our friends at the We charity that kind
Yeah,
of
the We
blew
charity,
up.
yeah. So sometimes focusing on your founder is not a good idea for a charity. So we'll leave that one there.
And we have Rebecca saying that we should read Dolly Parton's American podcast. Got it. I'll be on that after this one because she's quite the person. Okay, I hope some of you have cats. I had a cat in the past. I don't have a cat now. But if you've never had cats, well, you're going to learn how cats can teach you about fundraising. Karen, do you want to jump on this next couple of
Yeah,
slides?
so I have two cats, and when we started putting the presentation together, this really resonated with me, because we have conversations with their clients and we say to them, you know, fundraising language is a different language, and they, oh yeah, they nod their heads, and then corporate communication gets a hold of our fundraising letter and just shreds it because it's not proper communication. So this is a great way to get this in your head. So if you're going to remember anything from today, one of the ones is think about cats. My cat and I are great friends, right? We love hanging out, but our relationship is built on delusions. My cat thinks I'm a cat. There's no room in her tiny brain for the idea that she's living with some species other than cats. So she interacts with me the way she would if we were a family of cats. The other delusion, I think my cat's human. So, you know, even though I fully understand that she has almost no language capability, I talk to her all the time. I expect her to pay attention when I tell her to stop scratching. It doesn't work. Okay. It doesn't matter how nice I am or how cross I am. They will scratch. I expect them to listen and understand and respect my wishes. And guess what? It doesn't happen, right? So what can we learn? I interpret her cat behavior as being cuddly and nice, and she thinks I'm doing this where I put out food for her, so that works for her. Besides the occasional misunderstanding, you know, it generally works. We work together. Neil, you can take this one.
Well, ungrateful human, it was a gift. How many people that have cats have woken up to, if you have an outside cat, to the dead mouse on your front door? That's what cats think. Like, hey, I'm giving you this half-chewed mouse, cat member of my family. You should love this and eat it in front of me. And unfortunately, the approach in fundraising is often we give donors the completely wrong messages. What we think is a great message. We're going to tell you about our organizational efficiency. We're going to tell you about our founder. We're going to use jargon and get into the complexity of the organization and all the different programs we run. And it doesn't work in fundraising. It works in other places, sure. Got a reports to government. You've got a very specific grant from a founder that has said, we need you to show us organizational efficiency and complexity. Great, send that information to them. But if at the end of this session, if we can convince you to figure out how to write a 2-page case for support, it will not have any half regurgitated dead mice in it. It will have the true language of fundraising. And we have done this, Karen and I have worked, I mean, we blew through our bios quickly, but I have worked for very small hospital charities, and I've worked for the biggest hospital in Ontario. Karen has been the CEO of both provincial and national organizations, as well as worked for small organizations. So we have been in your shoes, both as volunteers and as staff members. We sit on boards now, and we work with groups that, you know, if I call up my list, we have worked in most of the sectors that are on here. Youth mental health, adults with disabilities, health for seniors, heritage, arts, healthcare services, violence against women, LGBTQ plus organizations. We've worked for them all. We did Rainbow Railroad's Christmas Mail last year, if you're familiar with that organization. We write for charities in the US. So we are asking you to believe us. Do not give your donors dead mice, because guess what? Every time they're throwing it in the recycling bin. And that's what you've got to learn by the end of this. Now, again, you're thinking, oh, how would I send this to a business leader? How would I send this kind of letter to a foundation? We do that all the time. Whenever we work with small groups, we write this 2-page, this short, punchy case for support, and we send it cold to businesses and foundations, and it always works every year for every charity, because we're writing it the way that people read things. So here's the key slides. Your donors are concerned non-experts who are paying way less attention to the complexity that you are. You're the ones that are doing the complexity. That's what they expect. They want to know how, I'm looking through your list again. I'm going to pick on someone here. How, from Marg, if she's with us with the Huron County Food Distribution Center, what they want to know from you, Marg, is the food getting to people they care about? Is it getting to kids? Is it getting to families? Is it getting to people in need? They don't care how. Do you have a warehouse? Do you have trucks? Is it refrigerated? Are you working with 16 partners? Do you have a certain schedule?
Yep, we have all that.
Sure you do, but thanks for jumping in, Mark. I love it. You have all of that because we, Kawartha Lakes Food Source is one of our we work with them for 4 years. We could have, we could do a 2-hour session on the complexity of running multi-site supplying food banks. No problem, we can do that. But you've got to humanize that. And for, development services and dual diagnosis, we're talking to Marjam, I think that's her name. Sorry, it's hard, it's in tiny type, but again, tell me about one person. Who are you helping? What is their name? What kind of dual diagnosis do they have? Do they have anxiety and depression, anxiety and addictions? Do they have a more complex diagnosis, a more brain function diagnosis and anxiety? What addictions? Who are they? What are their addictions? Not the complexity around the treatment plan, but who they are as people. Again, we're going to drive you crazy and go over this a million times this morning until you agree and submit. So the responsibility is yours in the relationship. You need to do this work, not them. If you don't want to do the work, they're going to move on. And you got to get out of these delusions that what the dead mice you're presenting to people are working, because they're not.
Give them the things they want, not the things you want to give. It's really what it is.
Okay, we're going to talk about neuroscience now, because that is surprisingly a huge topic in fundraising, and probably one of the best books I've read this year, and I will add it to the list or to the slides afterwards, is Hooked on a Feeling. Get that book, read that book. If you're serious about fundraising, Hooked on a Feeling, written by an Italian scholar. Very accessible chapters, but in his book, there's lots of examples, but we're going to capture the most important one. And before we do that, I want a pop quiz. You can answer in the chat if you want. Tell me the age of a young donor. What is a real young donor right now in charities? Who are their most important young donors for charities right across the country? Just take a second to pop that in the chat if you want. We'll just take a pause for a second. Okay, Lisa's brave. Who else is brave? All right, we got a few more popping in there. Look at this, great. people are jumping in on Zoom. Okay, I'll give it another second. Here's going to be some shocking information for you. A young donor in fundraising looks like me. I am 54. I am a young donor in charity. Now, there's 2 reasons for that, that organizations think about people my age. Not that 25-year-olds or 15-year-olds or students or 20-year-olds can't give. Of course they can. And they're motivated by the exact same things that I'm talking to you today about. However, they cannot give regularly. They can give episodically, they can give at a walk, they can give once in a while. But for charities that need to survive into coming recession, think about me. You need to think about young donors being people in their 50s and up. The average age, we won't do a pop quiz on that, but what do you think the average age of a donor in Canada is? Based on what I've just said to you, it's 67. Thank you, Lisa, 65. Right in the right zone there. And the average age of people donating to charities is 65. And the newer, most important donors you need to bring into your organization are 50 plus. So that's why neuroscience matters. That's why neuroscience is so incredibly important. In addition to not giving people the dead mice, this is how it relates to neuroscience. You've got to understand how your message will be understood by your donors. And as we get older, we're more right-brained, we're more emotional, we're more story-driven, we're more belief-driven. If you doubt that, just go on to the rage machine, I mean social media, and you will see people 50 plus that have lived since 1945 in the longest time of peace in human history, with the most resources that we as a society has ever seen, at the peak of everything we can imagine. And I have no idea why people my age are so upset online. Well, that's because they are driven by stories and they're driven by emotion. So this is going on around you all the time in a negative way, but this is why neuroscience is so important. For you write to donors who can give to you regularly, they are more right-brained, meaning they need stories, they need pictures, they need to feel why they should give. This is just neuroscience. Karen, do you want to jump in? Any
Yeah.
stories? Any?
So there's a cognitive gap between you and the donor. It's your donor is more right brain than perhaps you are, especially because our staffs tend to be on the younger side. So we're already talking that age gap. But as Neil says, it's not just the age, generational, cultural gap. It's that left brain, right brain. We're operating on our left brain because we're running organizations and we're appealing to right brain people. So it's you want to have the copy with the sensory images. It's really, really important. You want to elicit that emotional response. That's what you're trying to do. What works for your donors won't work for you. It'll feel awkward. You have to make it work for you, but it doesn't come naturally. So you have to intentionally start saying, what are those right brain emotional stories that I can talk about to make this more effective? When you learn to make that leap, it's on your own mind to what you would work based on the knowledge of donors. And that's what's really, really critical. And then you start to succeed. When you start saying, okay, yeah, when I was CEO for Osteoporosis Canada, and my first direct mail letter I had to approve, and the copy came in, please stand up for osteoporosis. Did you know that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 8 men and blah, blah, blah. I was just like, oh my gosh, we can't send this letter. And I had, because I was new to the organization, had recently been finding out what was going on. And there was 2 stories that I used in the 2 fundraising. When I was interviewing for the organization, I said, I've been executive director for ALS Ontario, where people die. It's a terrible disease. I work for cystic fibrosis, where kids die. And I work for the CNIB, where next to dying, people fear blindness. Like, osteoporosis, really? Little old ladies with a bent back? The person interviewing me, long-term volunteer, she said, Karen, did you know that this year more women will die from the effects of an osteoporotic hip fracture than will die from breast and ovarian cancers combined? Well, whoa, I didn't know that. And I worked in the sector, so obviously the public doesn't know that. And then I talked about this man from Calgary. His name was Carl. He used to be 5'11". He's now 4'11" because severe osteoporosis has made his spine crumble from within his body. That's when you get the attention. And then you follow up with the blah, blah, blah. You need stuff in the letter, but that getting to that cognitive right brain story is what's really, really important. Oops, wrong way. Go ahead, Neil.
So again, it's a gap of knowledge, understanding, and sophistication about your cause. Your donors are not that sophisticated about all the things in their community, and they don't have time. Who has time? In the millions of rage machines messages you're getting and your emails and your kids or your grandkids or your spouse or all the things going on in your life, you don't have time to get into the complexity. And your brain, when you're 50 plus, is more interested to hear stories anyways. So this is the big leap of faith that we're asking you on the call to start making. And we know what's going to happen. Your board is going to say, what, are you out of your mind? You can't say this. Well, we can't show this picture. We're going to show you a picture later that's going to be, it's a difficult picture and you will all recognize it. But I want you to know there is one difficult picture coming on purpose. And just before we get there, I will tell you again. But it's just, this is the reality. You're going to get pushback about it. You're going to get pushback from staff. We can't sound like we don't understand. We can't tell stories of people. If you want to raise money and make a difference, this is the path you got to walk. You're the expert. They're not the experts. Karen, we'll just go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Thank you. But let's remember the but. They care and they want to donate. They don't need to become experts like you in order to care enough to give. Case in point, do you accept everybody from all faiths and all religions and anyone? Yes, here's your check for 50,000. That's what it comes down to. But it's up to you. You have to do the work and cross the gap. When you understand this truth in fundraising, things are going to go well. If we just go back to that last slide for 1 second, just to
Mhm.
make that, remember this, you have to understand this truth. Now, recently, last week, we were out your way, north of you. We won't say exactly where, but I did a little straw poll. Have any of you received a cystic fibrosis letter recently? How about St. Mike's Hospital? How about there's a number of national charities that we write for. And I can tell you that that mail is going to your donors in Stratford. So every day, all day long, people like Karen and I are writing copy that is exactly this, and we are sending it to your community every day. So that's why you need to take this seriously, because guess what? The rest of the world already is, and they're in your community now. Plus, you're up against the Stratford Festival, which is a bit of a juggernaut in your community. And you're up against, I notice we don't have anybody from your local hospital. You're up against them every day, all day. And so you got to start realizing that if you're going to make a difference for your fundraising, you got to take this seriously. Okay, Karen, we can go on now.
Mhm. So that's the most important encouraging point. So the Better Fundraising blog, the gap and the gift, crossing the gap, means that you want to speak the language. You want to use language that your donors understand and not professional jargon. It's an act of, so doing this is an act of generosity, kindness, and open-heartedness. And when you've done the generous thing, when you've crossed the gap to meet your donor where they are, then you can ask them to take the first step towards involvement and greater understanding and making a gift. When you cross the gap, they can cross it too and become partners in your mission. So use language they understand. Don't load up your fundraising with complexity, how it works. Don't you focus on specifics, not abstractions, and you talk about things that motivate your donors. So that's really important in minding the gap.
We're gonna have some slides here that talk about 16 things you can do. A lot of these I want you to refer to after the presentation when you have the slides, so that when you're sitting in your office, you can think, okay, I need some concrete examples. Here's some concrete examples for you. Again, you can see that we're using our master's skills here and managing the complexity by pulling in a lot of secondary research that we've taken the time to sort through and figure out. But we're presenting it as Dead Mice and Dolly Parton so that it will make more sense to you and be memorable. And this is the same kind of work that you have to do. At this point, I want to just take a minute. I appreciated Mark jumping on and having some fun. Do you have questions, concerns, pushback? Do you want to ask us any tough questions right now before we get into a little bit more onto the weeds here? One of the places we do get pushback is people will say to us, we can't have the savior complex in our work. And I understand that. We've done work in the US, and if you want the savior complex, let me tell you, the writing down there is very different than the writing that is going on in Canada. There is a heavy duty religious focus to the work there, where there is massive savior complex for overseas organizations. And so this is not savior complex work in Canada. We would like you to consider showing one person and how they're helped by the organization based on all the complexity you manage. What is the outcome? And that's what I would challenge you to continue to think about. That isn't going to happen right away. It isn't going to be something that tomorrow or today you're going to be able to put right on a piece of paper. But the more that you think about that, the more you look for the stories, the more you find how does this story hang together? And we've said to Kristen and Will that there's kind of a part B to this whole seminar, which is let's do some technical writing about that and get into the technical writing. But unless we convince you how to start thinking about technical writing, you'll never get us. If we try to go to technical writing, you think we're really insane at that point, until we get you to really see that there's up there. Now, will you discuss how to find donors? Sure, we can have that for, we'll take a quick pause on that one to talk about that. One of the ways that we use this 2-page case for support with our other clients is to say, and you can buy these services yourself. There are, you can go online to Grant Connect, you can pay the subscription fee, you can look for charities that have giving histories that relate to yours. And what we tell our groups is take this 2-page letter, send it to them. It doesn't matter if they say, we don't give out grants, we only ask for things, we still send it, because that's how it works. And we had one group we worked for 4 years. We got towards the end of the year and we saw their financial statements were like, how come Rob, the EG, Rob, you didn't tell, how did you not manage to tell us you got 5 foundation gifts that were almost 100,000 this year from us sending the 2-page letter? Oh yeah, I forgot, we were super busy. Granted, it's a homeless shelter, and if any of you are working in the homeless shelter world, and they're 21 beds, 14 men, 7 women are full every night. They got 15 people standing up front. And like every community, there's the drug epidemic happening around, all around them. No wonder Rob forgot to tell us. But that 2-page letter earned $100,000 plus all the other people it went to. So, Jim, we'll
Neil,
get to your point.
Jim is asking, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. So cold to foundations. This is when you're going to go to the business leaders in your community. Most businesses in Stratford are owned by one person or a family. You want to sell that to the family, to the people, not try to write to the business. So just start thinking about who you could send this to, who you could introduce your charity to. You can use it for people that have maybe given you 250 in the past, like, hey, can we come and see you and present this to you and get your take on it? There's lots of ways to think about finding new donors, and we can, again, there's a whole session in there. Okay, I just want to, so the striking the balance, again, Jim, there's some good technical work that we can, I might be able to send you a good example of that afterwards. But if you try to think about patronizing, it's an interesting thing. Now, there's a secret to writing that we're going to get to, that what is the most impactful thing you can do? We're going to save that to the end, and that will help to answer your question. And we've got a number of examples that we're going to share to you of. So in classic Masters fashion, we've got the curated secondary sources, but we're going to give you the primaries at the end, the primary research, which is the work Karen and I have done. Feel free to, that's why we're putting it in the slides. It's a place for you to start. You're going to start to see that language about how it looks and how it doesn't sound patronizing. I think people can take a lot of complexity, but they also can take a lot of emotion, which after the 16 things, we're going to hit the emotion, just so you know that's coming again. And so these are, again, if we had to think about some of these on the list, and I've got a separate slide thing on my side, so I can just make sure that I see that as well. They want to deliver real results. They want to deliver, they want to make an impact, they want to make a change. And I think that's how you avoid the patronizing. Let me just pull another example off of here of, I'm looking at the list from Will about who's on here. Our friends at the Melville, you folks are very specific about what you need. We need to write a 203-word essay of why we deserve a $5,000 gift from Kindred Credit Union. Our church is the host of Soup and More, and we would love a commercial dishwasher installed to help us with this, but our congregation just can't justify spending the money as it's actually benefiting Soup and More. Love it. Great. You tell me a story. Kindred needs to hear about someone that comes to your service. We write in this sector all the time. For our shelter client, we're telling their Christmas story is going to be grandmother, daughter, grandson, plus dog, lost their housing, living in a car. And that journey to how they finally got to the shelter. So you can tell really hard stories, but you want to make the donor be the one that, we would write it and say, your love is going to open the door to the shelter. That's what it starts to sound like. And again, we need another session to get into the technical writing, but I think as long as you respect your donor and tell them true stories that need empathy, you won't patronize them. But we have examples at the end. Okay, so we're going to get to the difficult picture next. Karen, you want to just
1 second there. there's the rest of the 16. Again, you can go over that when you get the slide deck, which we'll be getting after this session. Here it is here.
We all remember that picture, had a huge impact on Canada. It probably won the election for the Liberals. We'll move on to the slides now. So the reason we put that in there is because crisis and showing real truths are important. Our brains don't hear about, there was tons of stories in the media about refugees dying at sea. That was common, and people heard that, they read it, there's another boat went down. Until we saw that picture, I remember seeing that picture for the first time, it was a gut punch. And in my community where I live is Peterborough, we had a huge number of Syrian refugees come into the community. And through some of the board work and volunteer work I was doing, we had the Syrian newcomer kitchen at the farmers market that I was the board chair of, you know, and at that time, these women couldn't speak English. We had my friend Ree Malley who was translating for us, and they were selling their food. And last week I saw one of them, I'm crossing the street, she honks her horn at me, smiling away, driving her Honda Civic, rolls down the window, hey, Neil, really good to see you. Like that picture sparked so much generosity in Canada. It sparked so many things that happened. And sometimes you got to go down that path to hit people where they live. When we wrote, how did I meet Karen? I met Karen when she was the executive director of the Durham Region Humane Society, and I proposed the Christmas letter that started with, and again, remember, this is only going to animal lovers. It started with Gracie crawled in the ditch to die, about a dog, abandoned on the side of the road in the middle of winter, and it went on from there. So we weren't afraid to tell that story. And two, we dropped that mail and Karen said, like, Karen, you might as well take this part.
Yeah, so back then, you know, mail was delivered within 2 days of dropping. So I think we dropped it Monday morning. Thursday morning, I had in the morning 2 or 3 different donors arrive with an urgent check. Oh my God, I read about Gracie. Here's some money. I really want to help Gracie. It was phenomenal. It had never happened for the Humane Society before. Because they weren't talking about, well, we look after all these dogs and all these cats, and you know, we do a great job and we give them food, and it was about the emotion of that, helping that one dog. We talked about the Syrian thing. It's the same thing. News of thousands of people dying in a bomb don't move us as much as a story of one young child lying on a beach dead. Like it's making that emotional thing. So the Humane Society, it was brilliant.
And that's, you've been getting the precursor on that as my word so far. Think small, think about one person. Your donors we can't all of us collectively fix the world. It's impossible. But we can fix, if you present them a solvable, human-sized problem, excuse me, they can fix that. That is what they are looking for from you. They want to know what one thing they can fix. As Karen said, we could have spent all the time talking about dog walking and the shelter medicine piece, and that's all great information, and it comes up in thank you letters. It comes up in newsletters. That's where you put that stuff. Hey, we've got this really innovative shelter health management system where we are, you know, using this new product, and we're washing things down, and we're keeping the shelter safe. That all makes sense to people after they've given. But when you want people to give them a problem that's human-sized that they can solve. Now, you know, it did make a big difference in Canada, and this picture didn't have the same impact on the US. The US is more polarized. There was a much more pushback on immigration. And so even though that picture went around the world, and in Canada probably elected the Liberals and started a revolution in giving for newcomers to Canada, it didn't have the same impact on the United States. So sometimes different images can work in different companies or countries. And in Stratford, when we think about Stratford, when we think about, you know, we've had the same Mennonite group come on the 3 times the Hidden Acres. So you've got Mennonites. Are they conservative? Are they in the buggies? Or are they evangelical? You know, what do your farmers think? How do the people in the towns that are around you think? You've got to do that complexity and parsing out. And sometimes it's simple, different messages. When I was a volunteer in the United Way in Peterborough, I said, how about we tell a story that if you live in Peterborough, it's a story about Peterborough. And if you live in Peterborough County, how about we tell a story about Peterborough County? Well, not surprisingly, revenue on that, by doing that alone, went up 30%. So you can do this in your community. You can tell human-sized stories, but you can also make sure you pick the right audience. Like, that's not hard to do in today's world. Karen, do you want to jump to the next slide? Ah, Dolly, here we go. Now I'm excited. If Dolly Parton has summed up fundraising, there it is. I just give from the heart. I think she should write a song about that. Maybe she does. Any Dolly Parton fans, does she have a song that says, I just give from the heart? Because she should write it. And again, if just go back up to that last slide, for Karen, then I'm going to get you to take over for a second. I never know what I'm going to do or why I'm going to do it. I love how they wrote the article. This is New York Times. Sorry, Globe and Mail. This is a quote directly from the Globe and Mail. Why I'm going to do it. I just see a need, and if I can fill it, then I will. Okay, Dolly, you summed up the whole presentation here. And your role when you mind the gap is show them the need so they can fill it. That's it.
Absolutely. So what's Dolly's donation strategy? I mean, you know, she focuses on fulfilling her love of children and their need to read. And there's so much research about how important reading to children is, even from infancy. They've proven that reading to children every single day is helpful. Well, that takes books. And sadly, a lot of people don't have access to books, particularly in areas in the southern United States. And we know that Dolly was from Tennessee, and, you know, that can be socioeconomic on the lower side compared to other US states. But her Imagination Library initiative, you know, a free book every month to children under 5. Like, how awesome is that? A free book every month. She sends out 2 million free books a month. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I'm not sure if, Neil, I don't remember reading what the cost of it is, but absolutely huge. And it started because her father could not read. And we know about Dolly's hard upbringing, you know, and how tough it was. Her dad was a very smart man, and she wondered, you know, what he could have done in life had he been able to read. So she really galvanized that personal impact on her with the lack of books or inability to read, and she transformed that to make a huge difference in the lives of other children. So as Neil said, she just won a philanthropic award, and her thoughts on giving are really important. You know, when you help someone, it helps them, but it can help you more. That is probably the essence of fundraising. I always talk about how fundraising is sales, right? We're selling something. We're not selling widgets. When you've got $50,000 and you want someone to buy your widgets, you know, they're going to get $50,000 worth of widgets. When I'm selling you something for your $50,000, all I'm giving you, not all, everything I'm giving you is the chance to feel great about yourself, because you have done an unselfish act and supported other people. And when we give, it comes back tenfold. It's almost evangelical in the way you state it, but that's what it is. It's human nature. You know, in 2004, when the tsunami hit, I was at Osteoporosis Canada. It was Boxing Day or Christmas? Yeah, I think it was Boxing Day. It hit. We had our January letter all ready to mail, you know, for our renewal for membership on like January 1st. And everyone was like, oh God, you know, everyone was outpouring of money and donations to the tsunami, which was in Southeast Asia, which was totally important. So we did a lift note inside it and said, hey, listen, we understand that you may well have donated to the tsunami. Thank you so much for doing that. And if it means you can't support us this time, we certainly understand that. And, you know, thank you so much for doing everything you can to help our world. And, you know, yeah, that January mailing was less, but the next mailing in March was huge. And what we were shocked at is that we got new donors, because something like that tsunami, which was so worldwide, you know, worldwide impact, was so hard. It was so difficult to see and understand. Some people gave for the very first time. They had never perhaps given before, and they gave for the first time. And it was like, wow, that felt really good. And they opens the door to giving. We had an adage about volunteers and donors. If you volunteer, chances are you volunteer with more than one organization. And if you give, almost guaranteed you give to more than one organization because you understand the value to you of giving. Okay, we should do this as human beings, right? We don't have to let religion and politics interfere with things like this. It's important to feel like you're doing your part, doing something decent and good and right. And I think that's absolutely critical. Neil, I'm
And
wondering if now is a good.
it will be in a second. I definitely want to, we're
Yeah.
just about to take a bio break, but I want to place in your minds the last, to understand why Dolly is so transformative in her healthcare. And I see that Dolly's literacy program funds book distribution for new parents given out by Huron Perth. I mean, I love it, by public health. So what an amazing impact. But think about why. And that's the key when you're minding the gap, when you're telling stories, is donors are often motivated by very deep feelings, very, things that happen to them, often in their childhood, often from their parents doing certain things, or traumatic events, and they give from that place. So they don't need to be educated by you. They don't need complexity. They're already there. They're looking to give to that thing that matters to them. And that's the key to finding and understanding your donors. Now, if any of you have gotten estate gifts, 9 out of 10 estate gifts, you open this envelope, you're like, hey, Joe Smith, look up Joe Smith rapidly on database. Joe Smith has never gave a gift to us, and there's a check for $200,000. That happens every day because Joe Smith made the decision to give to your charity probably 30 years ago based on his values. There's no difference between men and women. They equally do this, give out of their values, often at the end of their lives with these transformative gifts, but their values were there way, way back in the beginning. Your role is to show them their values and actions. So we are going to take 5-minute break in a minute. Everybody can kind of get up, stretch, and do all their things. We're going to come back and we're going to finish up the slide presentation. Then we're going to split into 2 groups. Karen's going to lead one, I'm going to lead one, and we are going to help you write some copy this morning so that you make a start on this and hopefully even roll it out very quickly after that. So that's what's going to happen. It's 11:26, so around 11:31, 11:32, we'll all be back on the camera. Here are the 6 common things that will kill your fundraising appeal. Let's remember the Syrian boy. Let's remember emotion, right? Like, these are, your story is not emotional. Emotions, as we said, we've established through neuroscience that your donors are 50 plus, the ones that can give to you consistently, and 50 plus want to think more right brain. They want to be told stories. They want to understand. And again, remember Dolly. Think about how painful it was to grow up in poverty and how that value has transformed her entire life. Your donors are exactly the same. Their values are how they act every day. And so if you don't tell people 50 plus emotional stories, that's not giving. I mean, I know we're saying right brain, but you give from your heart. If you're not giving from your heart, you're not going to give. Karen, do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so your story has the wrong hero. So again, we talk about making the donor the hero, but if you've got that visionary founder, or or your examples, if the donor can't relate to that, it's not the hero that you need, right? The hero of the story you have to win over donors with is to make them the hero. Say to them, you can be a hero in this by doing this for us. You can be the hero that we need. There are more potential heroes. You're placing them before an opportunity. You're placing before them an opportunity to do something great. So that's important. So make sure that your story has the right hero, not the wrong one.
If we ever come back for session B, where we get into the writing, I have writing that sounds so corny that you will think I am out of my mind, but I will have the results to show you where in fact it was like breakthrough fundraising for organizations when we told stories and said things like, with you by my side, we can do this together. Like, I'm telling you right now, it's, as I said earlier, people like me are writing this stuff and sending it to your community every day. So we've got to help you to get to understand it as well.
Make sure your
So
story is not just about programs, right? I mean, it's about, got to be about the people. Your programs are important, but what you want to talk about is the impact of those programs. What is the difference in a life? If you can talk about the one life that your programs made a difference for, that's going to be far more powerful than talking about the program itself. People want to make a difference for fellow human beings. And so, you know, that's the story you want to tell. Neil?
So your story is not detailed enough. And let me refer back to the story that I'm writing for the shelter about the grandmother, mother and son plus dog living in the car. Well, before I can finish that letter, I need to know the year and the make and the model of the car. Are they camping out in a 2011 CRV, or are they in a 2008 Honda Civic? Because both of those cars we know, they're very different cars. We can understand, like, oh, we're sleeping in a an old Chrysler minivan, where you remember those ones where all the seats go down and so everybody can camp out and actually stretch out. But if they're sleeping in a Honda Civic with 3 people and a dog, how do you do that? How can you possibly sleep in that car? And that's what I mean about the details. Sometimes it's those details that drive the whole story. We've told lots of detailed stories. I won't drag that out, but I want all, as we're about to do the breakout rooms, start thinking about what are the details for you that really make these things come alive.
And yet not too detailed, right? So here we are now with details, no details, but it's Neil talked about in the last slide. You want the details that elicit the emotion. You don't want just you want your details to be vivid. So you're not practicing journalism. You know, you don't need the who, what, where, why, when. That's not what's required. You need, you know, again, the visual of sleeping in a huge minivan is not the same as sleeping in a little Honda Civic. So that detail is important because it elicits that emotional response of, oh, how cramped, how awful that would be. So you want details, but you know what? You don't want the wrong details. You need to make sure the details are eliciting that emotion, right?
I know this is the kicker. Your story has a happy ending. Unfortunately, it can't have a happy ending. It needs to be a story that isn't finished. It's the gift, it's the donor that finishes the story. We do work for hospitals. I'm writing a story. There's a it's a a woman that's been diagnosed with breast cancer, triple negative, very aggressive. Her tumor's already doubled in size. And what we're writing about is that exactly. She started chemotherapy. She's, you know, the letter starts with her getting the call, you have cancer, while she's in the park with her 7-year-old son. And she feels like she's frozen in time. And her son says, hey, Mom, why aren't you playing with me? And that brings her back to reality. And we go on from there. And the story is ending with, I don't get my surgery until February. I don't know what's going to happen. That's how you have to think about your stories. You can't, you know, this isn't like, I've been through all that and look at me now and I'm cancer free 5 years later. That's not the story. The story is, we don't know what's going to happen. So I know you want to default to happy. We all get that. I want happy. I like happy. We all think happy works. Happy works in your thank you letters and happy works in your newsletters. But if you want people to give, it has to be like, okay, if I don't give, something terrible is going to happen.
So why does, yeah, go ahead, Neil, go ahead.
Okay. Again, why do so many fundraising appeals fail? I know you've had fundraising appeals that failed, or else you wouldn't have been here. Or you're new to the role and you don't want to fail because you want to keep your job, or you want to be a good volunteer, whatever the reasons you are to be here. It's fear. You don't come across as erudite or sophisticated. Your donors will lose respect for you. Nope. Hard no. Your board is going to push back on that. People in your organization are going to push back on that, but you know better. You know that you're giving people a half-chewed mouse if you do that, and that's not going to work. Pride, maybe even arrogance in your knowledge and education. Hey, we're all, like I said, we've all got, Karen and I have masters. We can be prideful. We can write beautiful papers. That's why we did that. But you got to meet your donors where they are. You got to understand what they want to do. And obliviousness. the way you see the world after working in your sector, dealing with the complexity, the complications, the shortage of funded, the pushback from the board, we could do a whole session. In fact, our other sessions were all about that. You get to live the complexity every day, but 99% of the world around you does not see it. How many of you have gone home to your spouse, this thing happened at work and blah, 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 and you're like, in my mind, I'm like, can I think about something else and not have Sandra guess that I'm thinking about something else? Like, that's what you're doing with your donors. If you're in the weeds of the complexity, Sandra works at a giant advertising agency based out of Montreal with a permanent work from home contract, and is very deeply in the weeds on Ben Lista, and her entire focus is on Ben Lista. So when Sandra over dinner starts to talk about Ben Lista, I'm like, yep, really, more about Ben Lista, great. So don't do that to your donors. It's hard enough with your spouse, right?
So here, this is picking on the mental health. This is an example. When the writers approach fundraising the way we're saying not to, and this has been lifted right off of the direct mail or a case that we have seen from another organization. And donor support will ensure patients and their families have the resources and support systems in place to maintain optimal mental health, including creating wellness centers, providing personalized navigation assistance, expanding treatments and services, and a reimagined outpatient environment that develops innovative solutions for community-wide mental health issues. Anyone here move to support that? Like, what does that mean, right? What does that mean?
Sounds like a grant application, correct, Rebecca? But I would argue in very specific cases with grant applications, absolutely, you've got to show the complexity of why that is. No question, but I would even say that's bad writing in that situation too. Just saying.
Yeah.
So again, we're going to start to transition into what does this actually sound like? It needs to be, we're making the point you need to think about it in a more smart way. It needs to be readable with several shorter sentences that have one idea each. Is it grammatically correct? No, but it knows that you got to know your audience. It's got to be this way. It's got to be about concrete things, not abstractions. It's got to be the language the donor understands, has to have heart. Let's skip through these in the.
Sure.
You guys can read these. You folks can read these.
Let's talk about this one for a minute, though, Neil. This is important.
Yeah. If you want to, this is probably the worst. When in our line of work, when we were told the president is a very clear voice, or the CEO is a very clear voice, and it needs to sound like it's coming from them. You might as well, okay, please take your fundraising and take the money and burn it now in front of us, because that's a better outcome than trying to write from the voice of your president. As we've, I think, at this point established, it is not going to work. It's just, you're just dropping a dead mouse on the donor's doorstep, and they're going to chuck it right in the garbage.
The voice is to accomplish a goal, Some bosses will listen to you, some won't. Just remember that. So you have a choice about whether or not you stick around. If they won't listen to the expertise that we're sharing, I'm assuming you get up on that expertise and share it. So.
Okay, great. We got a good one from our friends here. That chat one, I want to take either Karen and I, whoever, when we get into the breakout groups in a few minutes, can you just let us know you're in either with me or with Karen, and we'll deal directly with that question right in front of everybody else, because it's a great one. And I know what you're trying to explain, and so does Karen, and we'll be able to walk you through some of that once we get into the breakout groups. Karen, let's go through. These are some stuff that you can read on your own.
Yeah, we're giving you some writing.
This is your homework.
Double. Yeah. This is, you can double it. Read up on this, right?
So that's just the writing secret that can double your writing success. Hello, grade 6. There is a $30 app you can buy. It's called the Hemingway app. The Hemingway app will tell you if you're writing at a grade 12 level, a grade 9 level, or a grade 6 level. And fundraising that works is written at a grade 6 level. And we're going to show you the examples next.
All right. So
Kawartha Land Trust, you all know what land trusts do. This is one that we work for. This is some writing that I want you to just read off the screen here real quick, just to give you some sense of what's going on, some of the writing. Let's go to the next slide, Karen.
this is the next one that's got the opening sentence on the next one. It only takes one day to bulldoze through the land you love. One day to undo the miracles of the land between, forged by time immemorial. One day could create a loss of land mourned for generations to come. That is powerful.
And again, it's going to people that are already thinking about land trusts, that are interested in them. So I had to fight long and hard to get that bulldozer line in the fundraising. We got a lot of pushback from in Peterborough. What do we have in Peterborough? The Ministry of Natural Resources. Who's half the board members? Retirees from the Ministry of Natural Resources. Do you think they like this line? They friggin' hated it. But it was so successful. It was their most successful fundraising thing they ever did. So now I never get two years on, I can put the bulldozer line in anything I want and they just smile and nod. So you gotta fight sometimes to get the good stuff in. Let's jump ahead again.
Yeah. Oh, there's going to be a boom in the Kawarthas. Today you can make sure it's a conservation boom, right? That was very powerful.
Yeah, we got a lot of pushback on that one too, but
yeah,
eventually again, one.
Yeah. Worldwide impact that people go on that. So next one.
Yeah, let's keep going through that one because again, that's a bit.
Station Gallery. Yeah, this one was good. This one resulted in a $25,000 foundation gift from a foundation that I never supported them before.
And said, don't send us unsolicited applications.
Yeah, exactly. But it was now more than ever, we need art. It was art that saw us through the pandemic. Art of sound, art found in film, television, books, or music. So again, you're eliciting the visceral response in your donors. Yeah, that's right. If I hadn't had my Netflix going, and if I hadn't had all my books and my music, I would have gone crazy in lockdowns. So they're tapping into that feeling, if you will, in for the Station Gallery. Yeah. And then we talked about, yeah, keep going.
Let's keep going.
All right. Shiloh House, there we go.
Transition house, 6-bed.
What happens to people who
This
can't?
was a great one. We worked in the budget before the pandemic to include high-end furniture that would be appropriate for a setting. Well, the construction ate up all the money. We got a $800,000 gift and we've got a $300,000 gift. So 2 gifts made this whole thing happen. But because the construction costs went up in the pandemic, we ended up having to use used furniture. So we told people that, hey, we had to put in used furniture and now we need your gift to improve the furniture at a more appropriate level. We didn't hold any, we told great stories about it, but we also included the facts. Like we didn't try to hide what we were trying to do here.
Yeah. Demand is pressing, donated furniture. Right. So that was that there.
Let's, okay, good. I was going to say that we're at the end. You have the slide at the end. Let's jump into the breakout groups. We're going to go till about 11:25 in breakout groups, and then we're going to come back for the last 5 minutes. If we don't have as much to talk about, we'll come out of the breakout groups early, but this is your chance to put us on the hot seat. So fire away.
All right, I am going to open the breakout rooms. There may be a couple of people that joined after, and I will add you manually. So you will get a prompt to join. So you just click on the button. If I find you here and you're not in the room, don't worry, I will help and I will place you in one.
Don't you love it when technology works? Technology working. We all love this. It seems
that was awesome.
become...
We had a great session in our breakout room. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of different topics there that we covered. And I think it was, we worked through everybody. I think we got good advice to everybody. Same for you, Karen?
Yeah, a couple of our persons had young children with them, so they weren't able to do the rating, but that's fine. They were able to weigh in on, because we asked for other feedback from people. And Amanda has been on a crisis call, so she wasn't able to. But I think really the exercise was very good. I think we were able to illustrate, what those words are and shared with each other. Oh, well, yeah, that was great, but maybe if you did this, it would even be better, right? So we were able to talk about how that would read. That was good.
we didn't get to the writing. We got to more of the high level. How do you kick it around? What does it sound like? And it's going to be the homework for our friends in my side. But I think people were seemingly excited about writing. I'm seeing nods from folks in there. There was nods when we were talking, thumbs up from Lisa. So I think, there's nothing wrong with finishing a little early. We're all busy and we all have exciting lives to get to. But I just want to make sure that from our United Way friends that asked us here, is there anything that we've missed? Is there anything you want us to cover? And now that you've seen the session, is there one or two last things that are important for people to hear? Or do we move on and Will gets to announce the winner who gets to work with us next?
I would just open it up. Is there any last remaining questions that any of the participants have? Any just doubts in their mind? Oh, looks like Laura's got one. Go ahead, Laura.
So I've enjoyed the workshop. I definitely like the stimulate your minds to think differently. If we wanted to do more work with you and we aren't the lucky recipients, where do we go to get that kind of information?
Well, that's a kind question, and thank you. It's at the end of the last slide has the contact information with us.
Okay, great.
Okay, I do have a question that's come to my mind, and this is not my work within my organization, admittedly, but how, when you're sharing these stories, does it always have to be incredibly concrete and specific, or can you gather from several situations or a typical situation to create this? Just wondering. I mean, it's really easy. I always think of like the animal ones, right? Like there's no identity issues. It's an animal. You can share as many details as possible, right? But when it comes to humans, like what's the line that we cross? And then between creating a story and that sticking completely to that truth of a specific case.
It's a great question, Christian. It's a great question. And we worked with a youth emergency shelter for a year. And so we had to face this question. And there are times when you tell a composite story. So there's very common reasons why youth arrive at a shelter, often because they're kicked out by their parents because of their sexual identity, which is the worst possible thing I can ever imagine. But that's one of the main reasons why kids would arrive at a youth shelter. And there's many others. So there have been times when we've sort of taken kind of the difficult things that many people talk about and create a story about that, but we would identify that in the letter. We would say, we've changed the person's name, we've changed their photo, and we did that with one of the last letters we wrote with them. It was during the height of the pandemic, and it was, Melissa is screaming and crying outside of my office, and the staff are trying to comfort her, but they can't make the pandemic go away. And then we went into kind of just how horrible it was for the youth in the shelter during the pandemic, just the indignities they suffered in terms of being cut off from everybody. So it wasn't about one person, it was about all of their journeys, but summarized as one person. So that is, if you had to do it that way to protect identities, it's a good approach. It still brings the emotion, but you don't have to, we're not breaking any barriers, or we're not telling anybody's personal story, we're telling a collection of personal stories.
Thank you. Any last remaining questions here? All right. And Will has put the link to the V-Formations website in the chat box.
Oh, thank you, Will.
And I think, Karen, did you want to show I guess the last slide, it's being sent out, so we don't have to reshare it here. But I think, as you said, Neil, ending a few minutes early is generally quite appreciated by people in our busy lives these days. So thank you so much, Karen.
Will, do you want to announce the winner? Do you have it ready?
Yeah, and I'll just note first off that in terms of sending the slides out, the slides will be available on our website on the not-for-profit network page. We'll also have this on YouTube, and it'll be linked there. And we'll send out another one of those email newsletters that you got, and that'll include a link to the slides. So that's how I'll get them to everyone. If anyone wants me to send them to you directly, just shoot me an email or a message here, and I'll send it to you directly. But otherwise, it'll be available there. I did draw a name for the winner, so I'm pleased to announce that Neil and Karen will be giving a little extra help to Miriam from Facile. Congratulations. And thank you,
Thank
Neil and
you.
Karen.
That's great. Thank you. We can definitely use it.
Well, I mean, from our
Yeah.
conversation, I think I know exactly what we're going to do. So, you know, we'll get together. Listen, this week was a complete knockout for us. We just have too many other things going on. But Will, can you set us up on email
Yeah.
after this? And Miriam, we'll follow up with you next week, and you know, we'll take a week or two to work with you, get to know your organization better, and give you, you know, we'll get that put together. And if you feel like you want to at the end, you can share it back to Will, and he can kind of list it for everybody if they want to see what the final products look like.
Perfect. Thank you.
I
I'm
just
looking forward
want
to
to,
that.
sorry, I just want to add that, you know, this is my life's work. My life's passion is work in the nonprofit sector, and Neil as well. We're dedicated to this. What I love about consulting and even doing things like this is that instead of just being the CEO of one organization and helping those clients, we get to have an impact with all of the clients of all of the clients of our clients. So it's really, really rewarding work that we do, and it's what we love to do. And if there's anything, please feel free to reach out if there's something that is bothering you or your organization that you think we might be able to help with. We'd be delighted to hear from you. But we love doing this. Neil and I have a great time. We teach at the university as well, and we do this back and forth, and it goes very well. So thank you so much.
And we love Stratford. Come on.
Yeah.
Bring us to Stratford. We're saying yes to that already, because I'm going to be there again
it's so
soon.
much more than Stratford. We're Perth County and Huron County, and we have so many fabulous things to offer in the area that includes Stratford, but is not just Stratford. Yeah.
We
For
were
all
in
of our-
Grand Bend and Exeter. We were in Grand Bend and Exeter with a client. So it's
Amazing. Yes, you know our area well.
And we worked with another Huron Perth organization recently, and we were just, again, through your community on the way to someplace else. So we love coming.
Amazing.
Anytime.
Yay. Come visit us.
Well, thanks everybody. And thank you, Kristen and Will, for helping us out today. It's much appreciated, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.